Was that you raising your hand or you said that?
I am, yeah.
Anybody else want to run against her?
Against Lisa, no.
And I move Lisa as chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay. All yours, Lisa.
Oh, boy, okay. And now we need to.
I am recording, by the way, and we haven't formally opened the meeting, but.
Shall
Yeah.
Are there people on the Zoom?
I thought some would, now here's John Flynn. I thought some would come in on Zoom, but it looks like one person. So, John, yeah,
So we need a vice chair?
need a vice chair and probably a recording secretary. There's no money, so we don't need a treasurer.
Is there anyone interested in being vice chair? Yeah.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
These are my own notes, because I just tested them, right?
And we need a recording secretary. Any volunteers?
Oh, God. Yeah, how about you? Ted, how about you? You want to record things?
Well, I give it a shot, but I ain't the greatest.
Boy, if you make a mistake, there'll be plenty of critics.
In the end, motions are all that's important.
That's right. Summary notes
Yeah,
and the motion.
we had a discussion on the firehouse.
That works.
That's all.
Yeah,
Bye. Yeah.
And the recording actually is going to be the video recording.
that's true.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So legally, summary notes are what is required.
Thank you.
So we move that as
Yes.
recording secretary. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Right, this is the capital planning committee meeting, the townhouse auditorium, March 23rd, 2021. It's now 6:06 p.m. And we just had the election of officers, Lisa Sternberg, chair, Pam Rogers, vice chair, and Thad Clevet, reporting secretary. Our agenda item, our first agenda item is the discussion of vehicle requirements and floor plan for an addition to the fire station. Discussion?
Have we received any of the information we requested from the fire department on vehicle and space requirements? It might be a little futile discussing.
I did,
without the data.
I left a voice message for the chief.
No rush.
Yeah.
He's the one with the cramped space, but.
I believe that was just done at what, 5:30? So I saw him up there, but I just had the fire truck go out, so there might have been a fire call.
Yeah.
They were intending to come.
But we asked for it 2 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, just like maybe we were supposed to have a presentation.
So is there anything worth discussing without that data?
No,
No, not at all.
other than I know last night after the select meeting, they want another vehicle. That was kind of a mystery. It was a trade-in two to get one.
Oh, that was presented in their budget to advisory.
This is a pickup.
They want to get rid of, they wanted to get rid of the pickup and the fly car. To do like, they were asking for a crew cab at $350. We told them they were nuts, that, way too heavy a truck. But, yeah, because that was on there already. That went to advisory already for this year's budget.
Yeah, that's in there. That's in your wish list.
That was on the current list that Bob circulated.
Yeah, but as far as space, I don't remember. I only saw it because I saw the chief present to advisory. Technically, it would actually reduce their count by 1 from a space point of view. So they get rid of that old pickup truck, and that way they could tow the trailer, they could respond, and they could throw air packs and stuff in the back, is what their argument.
I said that one email about a week ago that I suggested that they do a zero balance, a zero
In other words, one engine, one tanker, one fly car, and squad, and anything over that to justify it, because 4 vehicles should fit in that building over there. and everything.
Well, let's see what they give us for this. Anyway.
Okay,
Did we ever hear anything from Mitchell in terms of any clarifications to that?
I'm not aware
No.
Mitchell was formally asked to
No.
change anything.
I thought we asked. Bob.
We asked and we did receive the response, the request for not the RFP, I'm thinking of RFP, request for qualifications, RFQ. We got that. That was what was requested of them.
They told you they were already over budget preparing it anyway, right? So they weren't inclined to volunteer anything for free.
But we could postpone again, and I'll remind the chief again, maybe he does have something prepared and is off on a fire call.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to look at what they have there and kind of rethink an alternate way to go. I know that you've got the same idea in your mind. And, you know, maybe we could compare notes after we get this data.
Back in December, we all got a spreadsheet and it had the highway department, police department, fire department. And when they tallied it up, even though there were different types of things, it said 11 vehicles. And I know that some of them were brush trucks, or one was a trailer, is that right?
Yeah.
And so what I would like to know, and probably someone here does know the answer, is how many of those vehicles, et cetera, are housed currently in the fire station?
So if you have a specific, I can tell you what's inside and what's outside. So I can also answer the question of what that had listed for,
Okay, so
what some of
some,
those vehicles are used for. Because they do keep the brush trucks outside because they can't fit them inside, but they do
Yeah.
use them. They
And the
just use them
pickups
during the day.
outside and the trailers are outside.
Yep.
So,
And I believe
I mean-
Deputy Chief mentioned that the trailer and the Dodge truck were supposed to be getting picked up by the state at some point, and they were still waiting for that.
and they're right now outside? or-
Yep, they've
Oh,
been
yeah.
outside, yep.
Yeah.
Right.
there's not much of value outside.
No.
I mean, it's
There was
not
an
inside.
antique, the fly car, the new ambulance.
That old tanker is
The
outside.
fly car was only going in certain, I think during the winter time, because sometimes it does stay outside.
Yeah.
Like during the spring and the summer, it's outside. It's only because should there be an emergency, you lose time trying
Yeah,
to clear
and
it off
there's-
and warm it up.
Yeah, so there was those three in the North Bay, and there was four trucks in the center bays, and then the big one in the back bay.
And the antique
Well,
The
yeah,
antiques
and the
in
fly
North
car.
Bay.
Yeah.
that's in the North Bay.
Yeah.
The back of the North Bay.
And that kind of goes along with the email I sent, only I just said, in my mind, I wouldn't dispute anybody, I don't think anybody disputes any of these war vehicles, but anything more than that, I think needs to be justified.
Well, I would just say that we should be cautious about how we word it. Because no one's asking the police department to justify why the chief needs a luxurious.
All I
service.
want
Right.
is some previous request, this is what I think I need, then we can discuss. it.
Yep, no, and I
Yeah,
thought that was
but
a
I
reasonable
make that
request.
exception, because I said the other day, the police department should have a motorcycle instead of that $56,000 squad they're asking.
You're gonna give them.
And I know
You're giving them a motor?
Yeah. And I know there's some of the police officers do drive motorcycles.
Anyway,
So to a little bit recap, engine 1 is inside,
Correct.
2 is inside,
Correct.
tanker is inside,
Correct.
fly car inside. There's something called car number 1, which is a Ford
it's the chief's car, I think.
Explorer, that's the chief's car.
And I think that's outside right now.
Out, okay.
Yeah.
And then squad 1,
That's inside.
It's a small truck behind on the nearest to us,
Mhm.
okay.
the back row.
Then we have utility, it's the Dodge pickup.
That's outside.
And we have the mini brush / rescue, oh, that's the.
Yeah, that's the Kubota, that's inside.
In, okay, then brush truck number
There is
1,
There is one of those inside,
that's, okay, probably the newer one. Oh,
because there's a brush truck outside and there's a brush truck inside.
okay, and I just.
The one outside even serviceable, or is that the one that's going away?
No, I think they're
Oh.
looking to fix both of them.
No, it said on the list it was inoperable.
If with the right parts, it could run.
That would be-
So should I.
No, I understand that, but I think there was discussion about that,
Okay.
possibly,
Isn't the one that's outside, isn't that the Army surplus one?
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was going away.
Both of them were.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, can we wait till we get the chief's list
Yes,
to
I
do this?
agree.
Yeah, I can also bring you up to date on recent developments regarding the highway garage. And I think John is still on too, because he and I have been meeting with Larry Tuttle, so.
Is that going to be on this spring's annual town meeting?
As of this point, yes,
Have the selectmen already made a decision on how they're going to proceed on that?
no,
Are they relying on us to get up to speed and give them input before that?
I think at this point, they're relying on the meetings that we've had with Larry Tuttle since we rejected the prior bids.
Is Larry Tuttle the architect?
He's the architect and designer. We went to him to talk about reducing the scope of the project, cutting some things out,
Right.
which he has been able to do. The original appropriation was 300,000.
I guess what I'm asking, Bob,
Yeah.
is given how far down the road you are on this, does this committee have a role in this project?
In my opinion, no. This is like a pre-existing prior to the committee.
Pre-existing non-conforming use, got it.
Yeah,
No, there's the old appeals speak. I like that. Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
I would argue that the committee should be thoroughly briefed and understand, because if there's controversy at the town meeting, and I would expect that there would be, given the new price and the new ask, it would be good to have a group of citizens who were very familiar with and had reviewed the project and could stand up and say, yes, we've looked at it and this is what's required.
Well, there was a spreadsheet that was sent on November 24th. I'm not sure who sent it. But it had the 300,000 in there, but it also had another 200,000 in there from the highway department in 2022.
Well, that's changed.
Well,
I'm sure that many of you have read or heard that the price of materials, particularly steel, is going sky high.
right.
And in order to, we had a number of discussions, but at the last session, and the selectmen are now briefed on this, there was a decision to use remaining funds, around 274,000, I believe. The difference between that and the 300,000 that the town meeting appropriated was paid for the design. So right now, in terms of cash for the project, about 274. The decision was to buy steel now, with the obvious risks involved. If the town meeting turns it down, town's going to own a lot of steel.
Sell it for a lot more.
Chances are it's marketable. And, you know, Larry was just telling us frankly that the price continues to rise. Eventually it'll level off, might even decline some. But it would make sense right now to buy steel and then go to the town meeting for an additional approximate $300,000.
So if we weren't to use that steel for the highway department, could it potentially be used if they needed to do the addition to the police department, the fire department?
I don't
I mean,
know.
like, could it be
I don't
used?
know. I think it is marketable, though. If town meeting says no more money, and the project is canceled, I'm sure we won't get stuck with the steel.
So how much is the additional ask for town meeting?
Larry Tuttle is estimating 300,000.
On top of what was it, 3 or 4 that we did?
It was initially 300,
And now it's 274 for that.
of which we have 274 remaining.
Yeah, so it's basically doubled.
Yeah,
That would,
But again, that spreadsheet, and I've had this for a while, so this wasn't just.
I know. yeah. Well, what
You
happened?
had 500 in there, so it should have been 600.
Yeah.
What happened was Larry came in on budget, and then we went out to bid, and the lowest bid was in the mid 400s. And so even last fall, we were thinking that we'd have to go back to town meeting for an additional sum of money. And since then, the prices have just risen, so.
And they're not wrong. You know, I have a manufacturing facility. We're getting killed on the steel we're making our products from. I-beams, we do a lot of scoreboard installations. I-beams have quadrupled in price since November 1st. You know, it's just, and to get ahead of it, Larry's suggestion is, look, if you buy the steel now, you'll forestall any more increases. And if the product doesn't go forward, there's 100 guys that'll be happy to buy that steel from you cheaper than they're buying at that point. But I'm worried about is, hey, Dick, is that arbitrage? Or what is that word we have to worry about?
Amortize?
No, it's, there's a thing you have to worry about that you can't hold and make a profit.
So like what you said about buying the steel,
Mhm.
steel has a little bit of a lead time, right? So how
Not
many,
much, not much.
how
Not
many
much.
weeks do we have to the town meeting versus when it would be deliverable? Do you know what I mean? So there would be that, if there's a clause in that order, that if we end up knowing before, we should be able to even cancel the order, not take it.
We don't have that.
I think anything has been done, and because we wanted to brief the town meeting, the Board of Selectmen, which John did last night. We didn't have a vote, but we didn't encounter opposition to it. If you're worried about arbitrage, that's only if you borrow money.
Right. This,
If
I'm
you,
not worried about it.
okay,
Yeah, no.
this is not borrowed money.
yeah, it's not.
We borrowed the radios and the dump truck. We didn't borrow on the highway department.
Right.
Prices on materials and public construction are not gonna go down anytime soon, so
No, that's right.
better lock it in while we can.
Yeah, it's not the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
And has the board talked about the funding of the additional 300, or is it just at this point authorized?
Have not gotten to that. I guess the assumption was that it would be a State House note or certainly not a bond, I don't think.
Well, you know, we really don't know where we're at and whether we need to borrow or
I
not.
don't know, that's what I'm asking. I mean, we're talking 600,000 and it's,
No, we're talking.
This is one of the rare towns.
but that first 300 hasn't, that's on short-term.
We've already, no, it's not. No, you taxed for it. It's in the bank.
It's already.
This is one of the rare towns in Massachusetts where you pay for capital items out of the operating budget. I mean, it's just.
Well, that's what I thought. Dick, you folded the first 300 into the tax rate. And, you know, we could be doing the same with the next bunch. But
That's the
Bob has also talked about the potential for some of this being eligible for some grants,
Mhm.
possibly infrastructure grants down the road, Bob, as well.
That's the other factor. The town is receiving $510,747 in new money under the Rescue Act that was just passed, the 1.9 trillion. About 2 billion is going out to the cities and towns in Massachusetts. Our share is 510. What we were told last week at the Lieutenant Governor's weekly session on CARES Act and COVID is that the regulations are likely to be loosened and that they may permit, they were even more positive than what I'm saying. They will permit infrastructure spending with that money. In which case,
Already.
we don't have any uses for that. I mean, we were allocated $460,000 in the CARES Act. We have spent $213,000. And frankly, other than this camera and a couple of other small items, we've bought everything that we can justify, mostly technology under the CARES Act. And that includes $50,000 that is being allocated to the regional school district. So we're finished, basically. There might be, well, there'll be some personnel expenses, I guess, over on the health side. But if you take what we have remaining from the first round and add 500,000 to it, and if they allow infrastructure spending, which is what we were told, I think the town has plenty of resources right now to do some.
But Bob, also,
Yeah.
Bob, didn't you also say that we were going to get a share of the, so to speak, county money as well, which would
Yes,
bring that up
that's the
to
other
almost
thing.
$1 million?
$1 million, it's going to bounce over $1 million. We weren't told that at the lieutenant governor's meeting, we were given basically the 510, but apparently the money that was allocated to counties, if you don't have county government anymore, then is shared around with the cities and towns. I mean, this is an enormous amount of money.
Even aware of that. I wonder if she's even aware of that because it's not going to be front of mind for her that Hampden County doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Because they exist in the east, right? The eastern counties still exist.
No, they don't. Essex is gone, Middlesex is gone, and Suffolk is gone, but other counties in the outer ring around Boston exist still. They didn't abolish all of them.
Well, I guess with regard to how we're going to pay for the highway department, there's too many unknown variables, even more than we normally go into an annual town meeting with. So, we'll work up some language for the warrant to make sure that we have flexibility to do what we need in the fall.
I mean, the good thing is that there's obviously going to be some monies available, so.
Yeah.
It's just a question of how to allocate it.
I gave them a draft last night and we had an article. And, when we get close to town meeting, we should have a clearer picture, or if not, if there's something that we can't explain to the town meeting, we just pass it over.
Now, does the new figure include the original size, or is that reflecting the downsize for?
There's been a little downsizing. John probably knows the details on that.
Not much of a downsizing, but again, you go back to the fact there are so many unknowns here. For instance, say we are entitled to $1 million in infrastructure improvements that will pay for this. Then why not build the structure we intended?
Yeah.
We've already
Well,
Tom paid for half.
How much change was there, John, from the original plans?
I think Larry trimmed 60,000 off by,
Yeah.
but they were quality things. They were talking about washing a truck wash, which is important to extend the life of the truck,
That's really important.
So,
And also a tight tank too, a tight tank
Right.
to collect the
So
wash,
maybe these get put back
the
in.
gray water, yeah.
But with all due respect, this is why you need a capital committee, because you don't, just because the money's there, doesn't mean you want to blow it on the DPW when we've got needs in other areas.
Mhm.
The senior center, the fire department, the schools. You shouldn't go for a Taj Mahal DPW. There's other expenses.
nobody, if you saw the plans, nobody's talking Taj Mahal.
No, I know, but we're talking about a truck wash at the DPW, but we're, no offense, Dick, we're saying a hydration station at the, we are picking apart the fire department. And we haven't even gotten to the other projects, including Academy Hall's paint.
I'm okay with picking apart the highway.
I know, but that's not the task of the capital committee. The task of the capital committee is to plan out these expenses throughout the 5 years. And to know that you can't spend all your money here, when, if I'm gonna remodel a kitchen, I don't spend all my money there when I know I need a bathroom too. You don't do it.
What was on the table though was the truck wash, and that in the long run, that really saves money because you wash the salt in the wintertime, there's far less corrosion and you extend the life of the vehicle, so.
Absolutely.
And the plan as presented is the plan approved at town meeting. We're not adding anything to it. Just because there's more money, we're not going back and saying, well, boy, it'd be nice to have a second floor or a fourth bay. Nobody's talking that type of thing. We're saying this money allows us to fund what the town approved, potentially with no impact to the tax rate, and still leave quite a bit of money for other projects the capital committee deems necessary. So,
In fact, renovation of the highway superintendent's office is not in the plan. And I remember a year ago, we were talking about if we had any extra funds,
right.
everything was done, that we should do something about the superintendent's office.
Does he want heat now?
But yeah,
He probably wants to.
he didn't ask for it. John was the one that said you should do it. He didn't
Yeah.
ask at all.
No, having been there many, many years, I mean, he's got the smallest office in any municipal building. He can't even keep the files in there anymore. So there should be a place, where he spreads has a table. So we looked at the fact, anybody familiar with the fire department, to the right of the office is that smaller bay. Should we kick out that wall and make so to speak, a bit of a conference room for papers? Now, Mark did say that's probably some of the work they could accomplish that themselves. And so that's on the table, but we're not at this point talking about expanding. That was one of those things, you have alternates that if there's extra money, can we accomplish this alternate, but still keeping the cap number there. I mean, Doug, that's something that's always been done, like school renovations. You have alternates in the presentations as well, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the standard on public construction.
Well, I think Pam's point is valid because we have spent weeks now on the minutia of the fire station. And what we're hearing and saying, I think, is that it's not really our role to be doing that. And yes, I think we want to hear from the Chief Pullen about his needs and vehicles and space, yes, but we haven't still.
I think, I believe our mission is to make sure that the expense is justified. And if there's questions about why they're doing something, then that's our job to ask those questions as to why do you need $14 million for a building for a town that hasn't grown.
But why don't we have a fire department building committee like we did the police department?
Well,
Exactly.
If that's the job of building, is to go, so I have a level of expertise that I believe I was brought to the capital committee for capital planning and renovations and that type of thing. Full disclosure, my daughter's the supervisor on the fire department. That doesn't make me an expert on in any way, shape, or form on the fire department. I can't tell them what truck they need, or I listen to them, but I'm not an expert on it. That's not my expertise. That's not our expertise. Laura's husband's on the fire department.
I agree.
We can't speak to that.
I agree with you. I never thought of that as the role of the capital planning committee, but what we've been hearing from Bob is that the selectmen have asked us to help determine what the role of the fire department should be. Personally, I think they report to the selectmen and they should make that call, but they haven't. They've asked us to do it, and they've asked us to design a way to get input to do it.
But so John, you're select, why don't we have a fire department building committee?
That's what I think we should be having. I agree 100% with you. That, like Thad said, this committee here is the, what do you want to say, the 30,000 foot view of projects coming up to you. And they need to be fully developed, like the Parks Department bringing up, okay, we'd like to renovate the Raw building, and here's our whole plans for it, et cetera. This is what it's needed for. It's not the job of this committee to get in and nitpick. Well, do you need a batch storage place? Should there be a bin for catcher equipment? That's not your role. You know, it's the 30,000 foot view that I think Doug has talked about before. You know, projects are brought to you and you figure out how they fit in the scope of the town growth.
And that they can explain all of the little certain details about maybe they break it down to a phase 1, phase 2,
Yeah.
phase 3.
Right.
I think in the past, projects this size, I mean, the fire department reports to selectmen, it didn't really require, a huge committee to put the project together. The police station did, I mean,
But the fire department's coming in at
at a
huge cost.
an unrealistic number.
Yeah.
Right, but it's even more reason why to have a building committee. And I believe you have experience working on a fire department or volunteering years ago. So it's what.
Never worked on a fire
Okay.
department.
But I bet you called the fire department once.
Yeah, very seldom. Our plant started on fire, we tried to keep them away. Because it did more damage to our equipment. And our equipment would naturally burn out.
But I think the point is that this started, I think it started out as a fairly discrete project. And as we've looked at it and as this report has been delivered, it's become, frankly, in my opinion, it's so amorphous, it's so ill-defined. I'm not even sure what it is that this project looks like, this project being the firehouse, never mind all the other things that are out there.
Well, then it's up to the select board to have a separate committee and ask all those questions and get them all answered.
Yeah,
So
I just
can-
don't,
Because we've asked, I mean, everybody on the committee, I think, has asked of the fire department a question, and here we are, months later, we don't have the answer.
I think what's happened though, and I might be speaking out of turn, but listening to what Chief Pullen was saying when we did our walkthrough is pretty much, you know, there was an administrative change. We had Chief Gorski left and Chief Pullen came on, and Gorski was the one that probably worked with that other, the company, what's the name? Mitchell.
And it was also that deputy, chief, the previous deputy chief that did as well.
Yeah, so you've got different leaders in place now, and I don't think maybe Chief Pullen's up to speed yet. And maybe he's not 100% in agreement with the project either. So it's, you know, even more reason to have a building committee or the selectmen say, you know, hey, let's go back to the drawing board, or.
Can we make a recommendation that to the selectmen that they,
because otherwise, I agree with that. Because otherwise, what's gonna happen is we're gonna be imposing our view of what it should be up there, and we don't know.
no,
Right.
and
It's not
Amy,
our-
why not leave it to the subject matter experts about what they do and what they don't?
So you're,
So that we just, as a committee, that was presented to us, we just rejected.
so you're,
Or you put it out, I'm sorry. Debbie,
No,
or you
we
put it out
reject it
3 or
back to the-
4, you say
We
that you're
reject
3
it
or
back to
4.
the selectmen and tell them that this is not an appropriate project, that it needs to be developed more.
Well, I think I'd use a little softer language.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe. if
And
we
that's
go
why
back-
I'm
No,
not.
that's okay.
Well,
I mean, I
So-
agree. I think we should bring it back to the selectmen and say it's our recommendation that we look into instilling a.
either they
building
define
committee.
it or put together a committee to define
Yep, I
Right.
agree.
I think there's some value in a citizen committee. Otherwise, you have decisions for the town being made by elected officials and professionals and experts.
Well, those elected officials, that's what we pay them for. is
I know,
to
but I
make
mean-
decisions.
I think there is value to add that other component of citizens, you know? Asking questions that maybe
Yeah,
the
now,
pros, the professionals don't ask.
I know a personal concern, if you say that, you know, you're looking for 5 volunteers to do a firehouse renovation committee, that you're going to get very pro fire department people volunteering.
Or very pro, and I think our committee right now is stacked with anti-fire department people.
No,
That it's just, I mean, this committee.
Really?
I don't feel that way.
That's how I feel.
I'm for the fire department, and they sound like I'm against it, but I'm more, I guess after having 15 years of weed management where I worked, you look to do things the most efficient possible way, and that's how I look at every question I ask is that the most efficient thing that the fire department can do?
I'm just a fiscal conservative. I want you to justify an expenditure, and nobody up there has been able to do it. That Mitchell report is, it's a landmine of triggers.
It's useless. It's worse than useless, because it establishes certain
So
expectations. You can't-
you'll probably, if you're saying the majority are anti-fire department, I'm assuming you're including me in that.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they've done a job of selling me. They've got to show me what they need and why.
And so,
I don't
Okay,
disagree.
so to cut to the chase,
Yeah.
we're gonna go back to the selectmen, and I'll bring that back and say we'd like to appoint a fire station study committee. Maybe one member from the capital committee as well should be on that, like that or whatever. Probably, obviously not Pam or Maura.
I don't know, Pam's in it.
Well, I'm just saying, no, I mean, because, that's,
I don't feel anti-fire department in the least.
no,
But I think there's a bigger issue here that we've talked about, but really haven't gone very far with. It's hard to configure the building if you haven't figured out what the future of the department is.
Well, if that hasn't been figured out, that goes back to the selectmen, because I think the selectmen figured that out when they voted for regional dispatch and voted for farming out the ambulance service. I think that in itself said what is the future of the fire department.
Well, that may be, but that's part of what has to be defined.
Right.
I think there has to be, a police committee appointed, a fire committee appointed. And, they gotta sit down, they gotta have a few beers, and they gotta figure out what's really necessary.
I learned recently in an exit interview with a firefighter who's moving on, that the beer vending machine has been taken out of the fire department.
Years ago.
Yeah,
Years
years
ago.
ago.
Here's a-
It's really sad. You should have been back here when we used to have the lobsters.
And when they did the police department, I believe they had, they had police officers, they had police officers from other communities, they had citizens. It was a diverse group of folks, so it wasn't just firefighters.
But aren't you saying that there ought to be a committee that specializes in reviewing every aspect of the building plan? And how do we make a decision on the building plan unless we have a firm decision on the future of the department? Are we gonna
What's the
continue?
future of the DPW? What's the future of the DPW?
The problem with the fire department decision-making is there's, will we be in the ambulance business and will we be running more than one shift? And each of those
That's
has huge impacts
But-
on what we need for structure.
But I do think at this point, you had a very good point. There's been a vote to have an ambulance service come in and dispatch to go out, and there hasn't been any talk other than in the Mitchell Commit study and what Chief Gorski used to say about going to a different shift and adding
But
it,
the selectmen also authorized the purchase of that used ambulance. We're paying,
which was by the association though, so it wasn't town money.
no, it
was-
wasn't all association money, it was revolving fund money. And
Yeah, they
that's
had
county
money, they had public money.
Yes.
So then, but that was before the ambulance was formally voted on too. They,
Probably, you're
Yeah,
right.
so it's-
I don't remember, the timing was pretty close. I mean, it was, just,
it was being studied.
and we are paying ongoing services for our class 5 ambulance service. I think that's what we have here. I mean, we are investing in medical response, in the ambulance licenses and all that stuff at the fire department. And so we've got contradictory decisions from management on what they're doing. So no, I don't think it's, if they would tell me that the dispatch and action ambulance, that makes the deal, that we know what the future is, that's easy, but I can't get anybody to say that.
Because I don't think they have the authorities. I don't think Chief Fuller.
No, the selectmen, I'll lay this on them.
Does the selectmen have that authority at this point to say we're not going to?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
I
they
think-
But if we go back to what the original charge sort of kind of was, it was, how do we get word out to the community that they have to basically provide feedback as to what they
Well,
want?
the
You're
selectmen,
Right, isn't
You're
that
right,
what we
you're
were
exactly
originally
right,
asked to
that's
do?
what they said originally,
But it's not really up to us to get people in town
because
to,
the project is too complicated for us to present today.
right,
the selectmen have total authority over the fire department with the exception of state law and appropriations. Everything else is their decision. The firemen work for them.
Sure, but we're not talking about a grant funded position. We're talking about that they're in the budget. We have a full-time fire department with some call people that are budgeted in, and you can go back and maybe the study needs to be redone. Go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we need to have a building that's gonna have some growth for the future, but not $17 million or whatever.
Yeah,
right thing.
well, just, like I said, that's all, tell me what the mission is, if you want me to help evaluate.
I think every board does, if the fire department and if that
Yes.
committee determines what the direction of the fire department's gonna be, and the selectmen agree with
Okay,
that.
can you,
That
I'm in a
report
meeting right now.
It's very valuable, there's a ton of
But,
information in there.
Thursdays and Fridays are
It's where
busy.
they need to be.
You just have to mind.
And I just has to have the right pieces cut out of it and
Yes.
put back together.
And I don't know who told me
Okay.
what, whether it was Poland or Gorski, but they didn't make up the 3 shifts in the bunkhouse. I mean,
No.
somebody was talking about that being a potential
I
need.
think they did, I honestly think that they did, it's like the schools, I think we talked about it before, when the schools they build a new school, they go, oh, we're gonna use the plan from Plymouth, we're gonna use, they pull, and that's what Mitchell did. And it sounds like Mitchell has put the same firehouse here that they wanna put in the town of Amherst.
But aren't we now,
It's-
aren't we now doing
just
what we said we ought not be doing, which is we're getting into the weeds again?
Well,
Yeah, but the weeds
We're
are,
debating about, do we need someone to set the mission, the fire department's mission?
And I think that's so,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, is this all?
and we really haven't addressed
Oh, he says that.
one of the
Oh,
first-
thank you.
I can't hear Bob.
one of the earliest questions that was brought to the committee was, what is the future of the department and how do we assess public opinion on that.
I don't think.
We
that's-
know what the cost roughly would be to add a 7-day shift, a second 7-day shift, and a third
So, Bob,
7-day
I think
shift.
we're finally getting the committee saying that's not our expertise.
And that's not what, you don't. use
Agree.
it-
No, we're not looking for expertise.
Assess.
I think we're looking for a sense of the public.
That would.
Well,
That's
require
not the
a
committee,
committee
that's
to
not the
too.
committee's job. Not the
Yeah.
committee's job.
That's the
I
selectman's
think
job.
that would be, quite honestly, I think we present it to the town, the information we have right now, they would say,
Absolutely not.
we need a whole new bunch of people.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what to do.
But if-
There's a lot of questions, and that's why going back to the committee, get the answers, bring it back to us, and they have a good program.
It sounds like then that we do have an agreement that we need some sort of a fire station committee as we had a police station
Right.
committee. You're
And that's-
saying
and
that.
I agree with that. Who's gonna do
Well,
that?
Okay,
I think we recommend that. That's the selectman's decision ultimately, but we
Okay.
certainly have consensus that it's not our.
okay.
Yeah.
However you frame it, but yeah, I think that that's what
Now I
we're.
know why she's the chair.
Yeah, because she's the one that takes the recommendation of the board of selectmen and says, based on our last meeting, we have this recommendation. Just like it should be the board of selectmen that establishes, they need to make a decision on the fire department and the future of the fire department. If they want the public to decide whether or not we proceed with having full-time or whatever, because you remember, it went to a town vote as to if we had full-time
Right,
firefighters or not. And if they want to retract that, then that needs to be brought up at the town meeting to say, do you want to continue with this? Or do you not want to?
Well, I mean, that's-
I'm not saying that's how it would be worded,
But
but
more of that, that's in the operating budget. I mean, every time we
Yeah.
vote the budget, we're voting, we as a town are voting to continue that,
yep, right.
Yeah,
just like every other department.
I don't think that's on the table. Is it?
But I mean, in terms of town, no, I don't.
Yeah.
That's how rumors get started.
No, I'm not trying to start a rumor.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
I mean, in terms of town meeting, I don't see any way that there's gonna be any proposal associated with the firehouse or the fire department that's gonna be ready for town meeting.
Mhm,
I
agree.
mean, it's too ill defined at this
You're right.
point.
And I think throwing it back out this way too, it's unfortunately, I think it may delay the project. It could potentially delay the project and it's desperately needed, but I think you're gonna get a better result. And by
Yeah.
really studying it and figuring out all the different ramifications.
And we certainly heard that the construction costs are going to be significant. It's not like we're gonna throw something at cheap.
Right.
So we better do it right.
And maybe by the time they're ready to do it, the costs go down.
Wouldn't
Well,
that
I
be nice?
suspect,
You get a nice
based on the
impression.
things that I've seen, I mean, it's gonna be a few years and all the construction stuff is gonna just explode because of all this money. But then after that money is gone, it's gonna be a drop, so that's when the high school was built. I mean, we built the high school $11 million under what was authorized, because we built it in the downturn.
Perfect timing.
I mean, that's gonna happen. I don't want to be the doomsayer, but that's gonna happen again, and that's gonna be the time to do a project like this.
I don't disagree.
so do we need to take any further action on the fire station topic, other than to just
Do you want a
report to the
motion
selectmen?
to say,
Okay, so I make a motion, yes?
or do you
Someone
want,
can
do you
make a
want
motion?
to
Motion
motion?
to report to the school board.
Yeah, I second.
Well, I think the consensus is that you want Bob and I to bring back to our board, appoint a fire station review committee, come up with a plan that can come to our committee for analysis of the cost, financing, et cetera. You know, and the expertise of the committee is going to look at the bones of it, the justification for it. You know, they're the people going to stand up at town meeting and, so to speak, argue for it. Not the capital committee. Your role is to how to fit it into the budget. Okay, well, this year we can afford this. Next year we can get a new dump truck for Mark, but we'll not get 2 dump trucks because we're trying to moderate the influence on the tax rate. And that's the capital committee. How do we balance the requests from all different boards?
I don't think John will understand that. I think it should come from Lisa.
What's that?
I don't, and I'm not just saying that Bob and John shouldn't do that, but I mean, if we're gonna have a chair of the subcommittee, the chair of the subcommittee should bring that forward to the board of selectmen based off of what the meeting.
I think it makes
Details.
sense to have a record, because this is going to be a long-term
Yep.
undertaking.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
You know.
So Lisa, you'd like to come to our next meeting and report back from the capital committee, basically?
That would be great. Yes, I can
Okay.
do that.
That's
John,
good.
to your comment about our behavior at town meeting. Your comment about whether we'd be trying to sell projects at town meeting.
No, the review committee, like the police station committee was sold there, not the capital committee.
I do understand, but there is value in the capital planning saying that if they can, that we've studied this project, we feel it's an appropriate.
Oh, right, you endorse it, yeah.
So we have to have enough background to endorse or not a project in order to be able to do that.
It's analogous to, and Doug may correct me, to the CPA. Projects can't go forward for CPA funding without the endorsement of the CPA committee. Park and Rec can't come to town meeting and say, hey, I want money for this on CPA. If the committee votes no, it doesn't go forward, correct, Doug?
Yeah, right. And
I see that like this.
The CPA doesn't have any, we don't have any authority to expend anything. All we can do is approve requests to go to the town meeting for consideration.
Good enough.
But without that approval, they don't go to town meeting. Right. So I think you're right, Dick, that, any project needs the endorsement of the capital committee, that this fits into the long-term master financial plan or something for the town that you all are overseeing.
I still have a concern, and that is about the mission of the fire department. The main mission of fire departments is not going away, but it's diminishing. There are fewer and fewer structure fires. There's a lot more prevention. New construction has sprinklers. You have smaller fires in structures and brush fires in the summertime, likely to have more brush fires with the climate changing and drought. If you listen, I'm listening to some of the voices at our fire department, and they're talking about themselves as an all hazards department. That seems to be one direction for this department and other departments in the Commonwealth. Other departments, if you live near water, have a rescue section. They have a boat and they'll go out and rescue you in the harbor or on a lake or a pond. And other departments run ambulance services. I don't think, I'm not hearing any solutions to what else, the question, what else does the fire department do besides put out fires?
And have you said that, have you told the selectmen you feel that way?
No.
Well, the fire department.
When we started down this path, I thought that was one of the questions that would be addressed.
Well, I think we have.
But
that
now it's going to
conversation
get
in one of
bounced back to the
multiple
selectmen. I think the selectmen will certainly want to consult the public on a big decision like this. They want to know, look, if we decide we're going to build a building that will accommodate an ambulance, are you willing to support it?
But
I think that's exactly what that fire department committee needs to determine. Because to me, if you're gonna present something to the town, if you have one or two or three options, if you know what those are. But right now, nobody knows what the options are, except say what we're doing, which is not right, or spend the $15 million, which we can't afford.
No, I don't think
There's
that's
nowhere in
realistic.
between there.
there are, obviously there's some basic missions they have to be able to do, but you're right, there's some that are optional. But fire department goes to the selectmen.
And that's a conversation that, in my opinion, the selectmen should have with the fire department about what direction they see themselves going.
But I think, so that was brought up when
Well,
when
what's
it was
interesting-
talked about,
Yeah.
that they were gonna go full-time.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason why they started with the fly car and the ambulance was because you're going to have people that are sitting around that can do double duty as EMTs. And so that you're getting more you're getting more services for your tax dollars.
Mhm.
So that's something they do. They don't just go out onto fire calls. Fire calls are not getting less and less. The building materials are more flammable. Furniture is more flammable. I'm not sure where that information is coming from. They do inspections for when homes sell.
Yeah, they do. That's what I'm
They go
saying.
to
Prevention, they do.
every
They do prevention
Right, and they go to every medical call, whether it's.
and medical calls.
They go to every medical.
The percentage of medical calls has increased significantly. And the percentage of fire calls, even with maybe more flammable materials, more hazardous material, percentage of fire calls is not growing at all.
Is there a reason they go?
And I think over time-
No.
Why they go to the medical? Because they're the first responders. And they're, so Saturday, I believe we had, was it Saturday, the life flight came down?
Yeah.
AMR was not there when the air, life flight was coming down, but they came later.
And that's part of the question, is we have a 3-tier medical response and nobody's, I have never heard the selectmen say what they feel it should be. And I don't know the answer to it. I'm not smart enough to know the answer.
We don't have one police officer that has their EMT anymore. They're all expired. But you do have EMTs, paramedics, and nurses, RNs that work at the fire department.
What's interesting listening to this and, observing the fire department over the years is that it's not, I don't think it's limited to Hampden. I think the role of fire departments has changed, but only it's in response to changing circumstances as opposed to a conscious decision to say, this is what we're going to do now. It's been reactionary. I don't say that in a negative way. I think that's just the observation.
Well, and some of the reaction was when AMR was starting to sort of fail, right?
I'm talking much bigger than that.
No, but I mean, that's when we said, but in the reality of any fire department, firefighters and police officers are considered first responders, whether you go into the city or you're in a town, both are gonna respond to a call depending on what the call is. So you're actually, I mean, that call Saturday, one of the firefighters was one of the first people to treat the person in that accident. It wasn't an alert
I'd just
guy.
like to see a conscious decision to say, this is what we are going to do.
Yep.
As a department.
Yeah, obviously, the fire department is the first line of defense on accidents and extrications. They're the only people who can do that. The ambulance guys have no skill, no tools.
Yep.
So, but, and so, I mean, that's a slam dunk, but, the question is, the little old lady who wants a ride to the ER, I don't know.
But that's AMR's job now.
But my understanding from Chief Bullen is they respond in case, in case you need somebody else to help carry him downstairs. Okay, that's a little soft, but I'm not the expert on this, and so I don't know, but nobody's told
I
me.
think they go because they go to all calls, all medical calls, because they're usually there first. They're there before action.
Well,
Their action has one ambulance.
I've been hearing contradictory to that, but that's okay.
Yeah, the police will argue that they're there first most of the time.
Yeah, and I have some.
Depend on hour of the day.
And I have seen
Full-time firefighters during the day, correct?
Right, and that was,
And if they're sitting over there in the fire hall.
5 days.
And if they're sitting over there or standing over there or whatever, and a call comes in. To me, if I'm a firefighter, man, this is boring, standing in a stupid station, let's hop in the truck and go.
Well, certainly, yeah. They also do it 24/7. They respond to all these calls 24/7.
So people come in off.
Yeah,
from all
yeah,
over.
yeah.
I'd like to have the group realize it's nearly 5 minutes to 6. And so what I'm hearing, in addition to recommending to the select board the formation of a fire station committee, that also they take some kind of action on determining what they feel the future of the fire department is.
I would say give us some direction on their vision.
Okay.
How's that? Is that better?
I don't know if that's our role.
Well, I don't think we can endorse a building plan without knowing what the
But
role.
I think that when the fires building committee is meeting, that would be the first thing, is that they're gonna say, well, what's our vision,
Okay.
where are we going with this?
Okay.
And then build from there. I think that's what they would do. Or that the selectmen would figure it out, but it's, because to me, again, it does feel like an attack. Are we going back to the DPW? Are we going, what's the mission of the Council on Aging? What's the mission? They've been closed for a year. No offense, Becky. What is their mission? What's the future of the senior centers?
Or the library
seems
or anybody.
intrusive. Right, exactly. It seems very intrusive to sit there and say, what's the mission
But
of
the
the town?
difference is that we're talking about a multi-million-dollar expenditure. And that requires some definition.
So we're
But we're
asking them,
talking about $600,000 for the DPW. We're talking about
We know what their mission is. We know
$50,000
what their mission is. Their mission is to take care of the roads and the byways.
Right,
of
but
the
a
town.
fire department is a normal municipal,
That's
Yeah,
changed.
but a big chunk of what's in that report is in the report because of regulation changes over the years
It,
that were not addressed when those regulations happened.
and if, when someone asks for the largest building project that's ever been done in the town of Hampden, and I ask the question, why? That doesn't brand me as anti-fire department.
no, but I don't think.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Not quite
Yeah.
yet.
Um,
I don't know.
I have
we're saying we're
one
pushing
more
back.
comment to
We're
make
pushing
about
back on the-
shipping this back to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen have just been through basically 6 months of guerrilla warfare against their decision on dispatch. They have absolute plenary authority to make that decision. Town meeting does not have a role there. And yet now we're going to have a citizens petition at the town meeting attempting to roll back the decision. What I'm trying to say is selectmen have authority, but they often like to hear from the public before they exercise that authority. And we haven't found a way.
So should they have a public forum that says, hey, let's have a discussion, an open discussion about the fire department and any of the other things that people want to
I
hear?
think we can do that, but you know, at a public forum, frankly, I've only been here a year and a half. I know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
It's the same people.
people.
Same people.
Yep.
I think, you know, our discussion earlier, maybe last fall, was how do we reach beyond the public forum and reach the average citizen who simply won't leave home at night and come down here at 6 o'clock or 7
And then
o'clock.
if we put it online through a Zoom link, we've got a ton of people attending.
Yeah.
And that would be the same.
Well, but.
Yeah,
I-
it's the same people.
Well, but I mean, I will say that social media is one of those outlets that if you chime in a discussion, that you can get some feedback. But you have to be prepared for the type of feedback you're gonna get, because it's an open-ended.
Yeah.
And typically it's the anti.
But I mean, that's the only
It's
other
the
way you're gonna
anti.
reach the majority of people in town.
Chief Gorski did a absolutely wonderful campaign before he went to town meeting looking for the full-time fireman. Because he put a good FAQ page. Every time he heard an objection, he found the right answer. The information was available. People, anybody with a Facebook account was very informed about what the implications were of everything. I mean, you know, he did a really good job. And, you know, that was only for $300,000 a year or whatever it is, as opposed to an $11 million project. So it does have a role.
It has a function, but the social media debates such as they are
Well,
worthless. Matter of fact, they're harmful.
well, that's what I'm saying, is you can use these tools to do them better. Mike did a good job.
But if I go back to your point, I think when we did the building committee for the police department, there were all these aspects of it. They brought it, because there was a lot of pushback from the town, if I remember, to why are we building the police? You know, we got 2 police officers on it at a time. There's no crime I mean, all these
Yeah.
same things were coming up,
Mhm.
and there was a committee that studied it.
They went
and
way
they
out
had-
in the sticks.
Yeah, like,
But I mean, that, you know, thinking on that committee, I mean, that was, I mean, it was Rick Green, it was Don Collins, it was,
And then 18.
but my point is that it wasn't, you know, it wasn't,
Wasn't cost.
it wasn't police people. I mean, these are.
but then I think they had public forums and meetings.
Oh,
and-
they did a good, because again, that was the biggest project we ever spent, $3 million.
So I guess my point is, why don't we just replicate that for the fire department?
I
Why
think
don't we
that's what-
share? Yeah.
That's what
That
Yeah.
would be able to do
they're
it.
not doing.
Right.
Right, reporting to the selectmen, and
Right.
saying just that.
Because sadly, Mitchell didn't solve the problem.
If you just get another study.
Okay, what is next, I think?
So the next, what is the next meeting?
Next meeting, what, do we want to set an agenda now for next meeting then?
Yeah, I think that's what we did for this meeting, so
Okay.
makes a good idea.
Throwing it out there, I guess.
At 6 P.M.?
Well, if just a suggestion, I put together that one spreadsheet, and maybe we just go through that spreadsheet next week. Because there were items on there definitely that should come off, but our job is to kind of sort things out. All the departments are listed on that spreadsheet, and the numbers we have that I know of are on that spreadsheet. And that pretty much would be a place to start. We go, I mean, you got senior center, we got town, the DPW, we don't have any discussion about what John said. Fire department's there. We haven't heard from the school. The school's got some serious questions to answer as to why they're putting stuff in the capital plan for leaky pipes underneath the building that are leaking today. Further deteriorate the
Well,
building.
but if you recall at the meeting that when I forwarded you what they had, they
Right.
offered to come and present, but we've been kind of hung up on the whole fire department thing. So
Oh, I thought
they're
they were
Aaron Osborne and the superintendent are more than happy to come and present to the group.
What
To
about
come and answer
Ed
questions.
Senadella?
What's that?
What about Ed Senadella?
Same thing. I mean, anybody from the school can come and have, they're willing to come and present.
You want the school to come in?
But it's a matter of when do you want them and then you just have to invite them.
Right.
I mean,
So
I think the only person we need is facilities.
I think they always have one of the other members of
I
the,
handle it.
Whatever.
no, I think
I
Aaron
mean,
is
with all
trying to get his
respect, I
feet
mean,
wet to
Al knows nothing-
understand.
Al knows nothing about the facility.
No, but I think
You know,
Aaron wanted to be involved because Aaron is involved with the budget. And so Aaron is still trying to learn what all the different communities
Forgive
do.
my ignorance here, but are these things that they're planning on trying to raise money outside of the assessment?
No,
No.
So
Not in this,
capital-
not in this. not in the-
Then why do we care? Why does this
Only
committee
if we're
care?
looking at down the line, we're looking at. 2,
because they
3.
gave us a, I think it was a 10-year out plan. That's what I
Right,
provided.
but I'm trying to figure out if there's anything in there that.
I think
is-
there was some stuff for next year. And so
Yeah.
I was asked by Bob to
Yeah,
provide an
okay,
update.
then I
for the Board of
asked
Selectmen.
my original question wrong. Are these things that they're looking for a special appropriation, or are they things that they're gonna take care of out of their assessment?
No, this is stuff that the town would be
Right.
responsible.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay,
This is,
okay, that's fine.
This is
So
over
if
and
they're saying
above.
next year, then it would
Okay,
be,
But
it
so-
would be good to.
They're asking pretty big numbers.
So these are, I took a quick look, I didn't spend a lot of time there, because as you said, some of the stuff was like. So these are just the things to the two buildings that we own,
Correct.
okay, yeah,
So I
Thank
would think if they're asking for it for next year, it's imperative that we talk to them soon, because you'd want to get it on
Yeah, I would.
I don't know the
suggest in next
specifics.
5 years.
the, yeah.
Well, they actually had about 8 years.
I don't want
Yeah, I don't care about 8 years. I'm looking
But
at- give us
5 years is there, and there's, to me, some very questionable things as to.
Because 5 years are, I mean, it's a time frame that we can work within and can actually do some realistic planning.
sure. We've got a lot of upheaval in our budget now with money going in and some savings and some oddities right now, so. It's tough to do long-term planning right now, because we have a lot of moving pieces, but. And the other moving pieces, we really don't know the future of the Wilbraham Road School. And we're not gonna, at least until that suit thing is cleaned up.
Well, there's a ton of capital money in there for that school.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
Roof, parking lot.
Dick is correct, that until the school litigation is resolved, you can't make a decision about CWB.
And until we know about
And yet we own
TWB,
that building, so I mean,
yeah, and until they make a decision on TWB, we don't really even know what the future of this building is.
Right.
And that's actually one of the,
Probably more.
elephant in the room is this building.
how many people in this room have been down in the sub basement
You can just describe it if you
here?
want.
You have to see it for yourself.
No, you gotta go, you have to see it to
Well-
understand.
It's 80 years old, what do you expect?
This used to be a school. Right?
Oh, yeah, I went to junior
Well, we
high
can put
here.
the townhouse on
Okay,
the
so-
agenda for next 2 weeks if we
We can't
want.
make.
I think you need,
I
I
think
think you need to put the school on there, get them out of the way.
Yeah.
There's so much linkage in capital projects.
And, yeah.
You-
We can't, no, somebody else has to make a decision whether we're going to save this building or not.
Okay.
And until they make that decision, we're useless.
But if you have, and I hate to keep the meeting going, but if you have the building study that John Flynn's been showing around for Thornton Burgess or here, that's something, we can't make a decision because we don't know what we're gonna be doing with these buildings, but you can put that at the end of the 5 years, put it on the capital planning, that dollar amount, because it's a reminder to the town and to us. So, no, you're not gonna lower your taxes by 25 cents because we need to start save money over here, or we're not gonna blow it all on the
That's what-
DPW.
This issue is either gonna be resolved soon, or it's gonna take a long time. So. I mean,
We're not
what
even
I'm talking
talking
about,
about other things like bridges and culverts and, I remember the Summers Road Bridge is a temporary repair, and that was what, 20 years ago. I mean, Lord knows.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we have some grant funding for some of these infrastructure projects. We just applied this week on Monday for design money to do the East Main Street Bridge, which is very deteriorated, spalling, concrete spalling and so forth.
But even at that, when I read that program, we don't get 100% money for that project.
No.
It's in place.
Oh, no, the
So if it's
estimate
a
is,
$3 million project, we get maybe 60%.
well, with the bridge project, we've applied for design money, 31,500. Once the design is done, it has to go to the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program.
Right.
And the estimate is it's going to cost $750,000
Okay.
to rebuild that bridge.
Yeah. What it said in that report.
That'd be
was
federal
most
money.
Grants are only about 60% funded.
Yeah, but no, if this would go to the so-called Transportation Improvement Program, which is federal money passed down through the states. And
Is that 60% of the grants are funded, or they fund the grants at a 60% level?
60%.
they'll do,
Yeah.
if it goes to the TIP, they pay 100%.
100%.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
the one on Main Street down by Lockingbrook?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a little bridge.
Well, we looked at it, and by the way, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's part of the flooding problem.
Yeah,
The estimate is it's going to have to be, the abutments are going to have to be wider.
oh,
So they got to
bigger
scoop
opening.
out, they have to scoop out some earth when they rebuild.
That makes sense, make a bigger opening.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, but before you do it, just one question about, because we're talking about water.
And I still.
It's also not on the agenda, so.
Has there ever been a decision about the dam repair over here? Is that can be replaced?
That's dead.
That's not gonna happen.
I thought your local water district thinks.
Yeah. Well, the reason, what made me think of it was the fire, I mean, that was one of the
Dry.
dry, what do you call it, dry hydrants.
Yeah.
Went into over here.
And they still, so Chapin Road one's still usable? Yeah, okay.
So prior to adjournment, how can this group make the best use of our time 2 weeks from now? Given that we've decided that we need to not get into in depth in the fire situation, or where should we go from here for
Well,
next in 2 weeks?
Ted's spreadsheet.
We could start with the spreadsheet.
And if we can get the school.
I think if you
And
get
the
the school on the agenda, get them on there, and for minute 6, if they could, get that out of the way. They seem like they're kind of like, what's the word we use, that don't offend somebody, snaky or shady.
So what we're thinking is Aaron Osborne, who's the director of finances, and we're thinking of either the director of facilities and maintenance or his assistant, I would think. but-
No, I would just email Aaron and ask him if he and Ed can come forward. They both have said that they would make the time. Just make sure they're available. I think 2 weeks is plenty of time to give them
Okay,
notice to attend.
and for discussing the Green Meadow situation primarily.
I mean, I would be prepared to, I would give them whatever
No,
you're
they-
looking to speak
Everything
of.
that they put on the capital, I mean, regardless of what happens at TWB, if it needs a new roof, it's gonna need a new roof.
Yeah.
But there was pipe leaks indicated over there too, that, by the time something's just cashed out, the building will flow.
Yeah,
So
capital
fix the damn
expenditures on the
thing.
2 buildings owned by the town of Hampden.
For the next 5 years, just a discussion.
They already sent us a spreadsheet. That
I'll resend
spreadsheet
it to
I
you.
is,
have
you
that
have
as
it.
well, yeah.
it went out 10 years, I think, but the
Send it
big money was in the first 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so invite Aaron and Ed, and that's on me, yes. Okay. And then.
I'll talk to Ed
Oh, good.
and
Okay.
underscore that this has taken a long time and we really need results.
Do you
Ed,
then want
which
to
Ed are you
take-
talking about?
Do you want me the one then to communicate directly with Ed? and
I will
then-
communicate directly with Ed.
Okay.
Which Ed are you talking about? The chief or are you talking
Bullet.
about Senator?
Oh,
Yes,
Chief.
that's why I was
I'm
asking.
talking about Ed Senadella.
Oh,
Who's the Director
But we,
of facilities.
so we're just gonna forget about the whole fire thing and ask the selectmen to,
Let's go back.
She's
to the
gonna talk to the
okay, all
selectmen.
right, okay.
And,
I mean, you could still talk to Ed and explain to him what transpired in tonight's meeting if you
I
want.
mean,
So the school and what else?
I mean, if he's put together the data we asked for, one send it to us, I'm fine with that, I'd be
Sure.
curious,
Yeah.
but it's not a problem.
I think we should also tackle the Academy Hall thing. I think that may be one of those quick sort of.
Who's the expert there?
By the way, we're getting estimates for Academy Hall. I have one.
So,
I have another person coming tomorrow.
Yeah, that's painting and it's less. than
This is
25,000.
painting and, well, scraping and painting,
Yeah.
the exterior only.
So I had asked about community preservation money for that and was told at the meeting that it was on the historical list. And
Well,
when
if you
it-
take
the
community
national-
preservation money, you have to do the restoration according to what is called the Secretary's standards, Secretary of the Interior. And the last time they went out to bid, using the Secretary's standards, it was 140,000 or 160,000.
150.
Okay,
100.
yeah, the estimate that I got recently was 23,005. I will have two more estimates on that, I think, within a week. I'll have another one tomorrow, and I think I'll have a third one soon.
And the Historical Society has already said they'll contribute $10,000. So now you're into an amount that I thought was underneath the amount we were talking about for capital review.
Right.
But it has to go to the secretary because of. it's
If you
CPA rules?
take community preservation money,
But that's the community preservation rules? Is that what you're saying?
It's in.
Yeah.
Community preservation, I've been on community preservation since we started it. When you do a building like Academy Hall, you have to comply with these historical renovation guidelines that were put out by the Federal Department of the Interior. And they're absurd. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous.
They're treating it like Old North Church.
Exactly. I mean, nobody does it that way because it's absolutely prohibitive. from a
Yeah,
cost
because in
perspective.
Belchertown. they
Unless
did-
it's federal
they-
money.
I brought it up, in Belchertown, the congregational church used.
I'm not saying it's,
historical
I'm not
people.
saying it isn't done.
Yeah.
We've had issues with people, residents in town insisting upon compliance with these guidelines.
And
Gotcha,
and,
gotcha. Okay.
So we're not gonna.
I
sneak it
understood.
underneath anything.
yeah,
Got it.
and we've done some historical
because it's-
preservation
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, the building needs desperately a coat of paint, and then you can talk about other work to preserve it.
And it's like,
We need to
CPA
save-
money's our money too, it doesn't really matter.
It is, absolutely.
It's on
It's
the
just been my
tax
view of it all along. I mean, if it's our money and if we vote to spend it on whatever,
Right.
that's our decision. But there are,
Yeah.
what's happened over time is more and more and more regulations have been developed. You know, requiring all kinds of boxes to be checked.
motion to adjourn.
I once did a sidewalk project in a historic
I think
district.
you should recall Jeremy. she's not
Because it's
listening to your
debate.
motions.
We don't want white sidewalks. It's not in accordance with the history of this old 17th century neighborhood. One guy on the panel said, well, actually, we ought to go back to dirt paths because that would be historic.
Okay, we're off track, and I know that Maura wants to make a motion to adjourn. It seems as though we're gonna
Yeah, I
do,
have to go back home and go back to work.
we're gonna do school spreadsheet with that Academy Hall, and maybe we can aim to spend 20 minutes on.
Yeah, Academy Hall's not our jurisdiction at this point.
Oh, yeah, they just established that.
So
Because
we
the
don't
dollar
need to
amount.
discuss it at all.
No.
Nope,
So we have.
because
two
as long as the
agenda
codes come in to what Bob said, and they're under $50,000, then we don't have. to.
I'm gonna have estimates. We have an article on the draft warrant, and from there, I don't know.
It doesn't-
John said we got, yeah, it's 25 grand and he's got 10 out of the historical. Society.
items. So now we have two agenda items for next time we meet, and I'm thinking April 6 o'clock here.
Okay, if you send me the agenda, I will post, well, send copy to me, I'll post it on the website, do the Zoom code and all that, and all you have to do is make sure that the clerk gets a copy of the agenda to make
48
it
hours
legal
ahead,
and
you know
official.
Oh,
Town clerk.
oh.
Yeah.
Eva.
Town clerk.
Okay, I may have to review that with you.
Motion to adjourn.
I-
Second it.
Well,
Am.
all in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye, aye.
Adjourn.